will impact the price of silver in a big way. In this video, I'm going to break this down and show the battle Congress has to tackle the debt ceiling is going to turn to the price of silver. I want you to be prepared for this. This is from Bloomberg, and the headline reads, "Debt ceiling's eventual return already has fund managers on edge." And the article starts by saying investors are already planning portfolio changes in anticipation of the next U.S. debt ceiling showdown. Now, this will be particularly frightening because, let's continue. The article says money market funds are the largest holders of treasury bills, which become increasingly vulnerable to default as the U.S. government nears the point at which it cannot pay its debt. Even as managers of those funds, which collectively, check out this number, collectively hold a record $6.12 trillion in total assets. Oh my gosh. That's an actual fact. $6.12 trillion in total assets. They still devour new issuance. They soon expect supply to slow as the Treasury approaches its debt limit. Now, there's an inverse relationship to the price of silver and treasuries, because when people put their money into treasuries, they see that as a safe haven. But when that starts to come crumbling down, they pull from that and they go into silver, like I'm holding here on your screen, and that impacts our price of silver. So as this unfolds with our debt ceiling issue, we're going to see it impact the price of precious metals. Let's continue. The article says that limit is on track to be reinstated on January 1st, putting pressure on policymakers to find a solution before the Treasury's borrowing authority finally runs dry. While market participants have dealt with this repeatedly over the past decade, front-end markets are still at risk of being jolted by the threat of default. During the most recent episode last year, Treasury bill, I don't know if you remember this, Treasury bill yields at one point topped 7%. 7%. Presently, we're hovering between 5 and 5.25. So 7% is a huge difference. This article says that will effectively force them to consider parking more cash at the Federal Reserve's overnight reverse repurchasing agreement facility that offers lower yields but is safer and more liquid than other qualifying investments. Now, as this comes to play, we have to keep in mind that it'll hit twofold for precious metals. First, we have really one of the most dramatic presidential elections coming at us. And whenever there's uncertainty, which people are absolutely feeling for this presidential election, whenever there's uncertainty, people look for a safe store of wealth. So yes, they may be looking into treasuries, but this debt ceiling is set to renew at the same time. So this is just going to spiral all at the same time. And when this happens, people will pull out and they'll go for the safe store of wealth, which is precious metals, silver. This is what happens time and again. Whenever we have a disruption, whenever we have uncertainty, people look for something safe. And treasuries clearly are not going to be seen as something safe at this time. Let's keep going. The article says Congress can raise or suspend the U.S. debt ceiling in moments when the Treasury needs more money to sustain the federal government and pay obligations like Social Security and Medicare. Once the limit is close to being breached or suspension ends, Treasury deploys a series of extraordinary measures to ensure it has enough borrowing authority to remain under the limit until a deal is reached. This is what we just experienced. These include slashing the sizes of bill auctions and suspending payments to silver service accounts. Now, T-bills and other cash-like instruments typically make up the bulk of money market portfolios. Those funds have digested roughly $2.2 trillion worth of Treasury debt. These numbers in the trillions are just so overwhelming, but that's where we're at. That's where we're at with this debt issue. Again, those funds have digested roughly $2.2 trillion worth of Treasury debt since the beginning of 2023. That's just since the beginning of 2023. 2.2 trillion, and expect to keep buying as long as they can. Some expect the government to pull back on bill supply later this year as the debt ceiling gets closer to returning. Now, this tells us as silver stackers that we need to hold our precious metals for the long term. Now, I understand there are people that feel the need to cash out. There's been a lot of dumping of silver. Ever since we had that big bump in price 3 months ago, people started cashing out. They needed money. I absolutely get it. For me, I'm a long-term holder of precious metals. I accumulate as much as I can, and I just hold it no matter what, I hold it. And that's how I stack silver. So if you are able to hold on to your stack of silver as this unfolds, there's there's many key components that are going to push silver up. First, clearly, the shortage of silver is coming right at us, and China sees this. China has been hoarding silver. They have their own silver rush going on because they want to be the lead for electric vehicles for that industry. They want to be the lead in solar panels, and they need silver for that. So just as we saw gold jump to its all-time high because China was stockpiling gold month after month after month for 18 months straight, the same thing is going to happen for silver. We have a silver shortage in general. There's not enough silver in the ground to meet the demand for silver. Any product that has an issue with supply and demand, it impacts the price. So as all of this unfolds, this is all going to impact the price of silver and keep pushing it higher and higher. Even the headline of this Bloomberg article that I'm reading for you, it says fund managers are on edge. Anytime that we see people feeling on edge, they look for a safe store, and the treasuries are not going to be seen as a safe store of wealth, clearly. So it turns to precious metals. We also have to, through all of these reasons that silver is going to be changing in price drastically, we also have to take into account Saudi Arabia pulling out of the petrodollar system. And this is huge. It's just huge. It's the first time in, 40 years that finally Saudi Arabia is saying, no, actually, I'm not going to be under the thumb of the dollar. They don't want to, they're clearly frustrated with the dollar being weaponized and used as a weapon. And they want to look for other countries, specifically these BRICS nations,